manifestation of its might versus right treatment of peaceful neighbors. It is a show of diplomatic duplicity, of professing friendship, but practicing hostile behavior, Mr. President. Bubulahin tayo nila na kaibigan daw sila natin. Tapos sa isang iglap, bubombahin ng tubig ang ating mga barko. How can they convince us that they're sincere one day, and the next day, one day, and they shower a former president of ours with praises and assurances in Beijing, and shortly after, the next day, fire water cannons on our ships. At ang ganyang pagtrato, hindi lang ginagawa nila sa mga barko ng Republika ng Pilipinas, pero ang masakit, ginawa din ito sa mga baroto o bangka ng mangingisdang Pilipino. This incident, my dear colleagues, Mr. President, reaffirms the merit of the resolution that the Senate has unanimously passed last week. That resolution illuminates the way forward. Because China contemptuously ignored protest, all the more that we have to rally the world to condemn acts which have no place in a civilized order. This is a defining moment for this Senate. Today, we join the nation in standing its ground from the front in need be and longer from the rear. And I want to show you, I want to go back to the picture that was shown on Philippines, again on Ayungin Shoal and Pag-asa. Mas malayo po ang Pag-asa Island kaysa Ayungin Shoal. Napakaklaro ng Ayungin Shoal ay nasa loob ng ating exclusive economic zone. Bakit nagsasabi ang China na kanila po ang lugar na ito na napakalayo ng China? 600 nautical miles away from Hainan province. No rhyme, no reason, no logical explanation can say that is theirs kasi kakalabas lang po nila sa CNN at sinabi nila yan daw ay indisputable sovereign territory ng China. How can that possibly be? They're the only country that acknowledges that, Mr. President. No other country in the world acknowledges that they own that portion of the South China Sea, West Philippine Sea. China is a titan. That is a given, Mr. President. Their military expenditure alone is 70 times that of ours. We are even more dwarfed in terms of ships built. We are outmanned and outgunned. And the peace we seek will not grow from the barrel of our guns. But what we lack in force, we have law and in goodwill sa puso ng ating mga kababayan. Diba? Kung sa basketball pa, sa FIBA, sabi natin, kaya ba natin talunin yung mga malalaking mga basketball teams? Ang sabi namin, lalabanan natin sila gamit ng ating puso. The international system remains one of law, Mr. President. And in this, we have the advantage. Might does not make right, Mr. President. Neither does it make fiction a reality. The Hague Tribunal is fully in our favor. So is the rest of the world. They cannot turn away, for they have skin in the game. 1/3 of global shipping passes through the South China Sea or West Philippine Sea. The world will not allow that it be turned into a Chinese koi pond. If China is left undeterred, they can and will put a chokehold on global trade. We welcome the influence of all nations who can help secure our seas. Despite all this, we have retained friendly relations with China amidst this dispute. Even in the midst of contention, we deliberate with them. Disagreements should not foreclose engagements. Pero yung nga sinabi ko noong isang araw, Mr. President, sa China, bakit napakahirap kang kaibiganin at napakahirap mong mahalin? Diba? Kung gusto mo makipagkaibigan sa ating bansa, ba't napakahirap gawin po ito dahil sa mga ginagawa po ninyong mga atraso sa atin. We have filed protests and note verbals, and again today, another note verbal was sent to Beijing. In the hundreds, Mr. President, too many to count, but enough, I think, to gift wrap its embassy here with the paper it was written on. Ganun kadaming note verbal yun. Although they have repaid our hospitality with hostility, harassment, and hosing down of our ships, we do not give up on the hope that it is weaned of its bullying ways one day, and that with the world's help and influence to finally recognize our sovereignty in our very own waters. By simply following the rules, my dear colleagues, particularly of the UNCLOS, or United Nations Convention on the Laws of the Sea, as expected of a member of nations and a signatory to this, China can make the West Philippine Sea a zone of peace, a place of progress, and an example of coexistence. These recent events should define this Senate, and we must join the nation in standing its ground by being at the forefront of discussion and no longer on the sidelines or from the rear. Although none of us here champion hostility, nor endorse the very tactics that we condemn, but all of us here are tired of the status quo. Paulit-ulit na lang po itong nangyayari sa ating Coast Guard at sa ating mga mangingisda. On the search, my dear colleagues, for a better strategy, I urge the executive to run the point, using all the viable tools at its disposal, such as a possible joint patrol over the West Philippine Sea with our allies, and the ones we have enumerated in our adopted resolution. Sa ating magigiting na Coast Guard at mga sundalo, maraming salamat sa inyong katatagan at katapangan. Katulad ng ating taos-pusong kinakanta sa ating pambansang awit, sa manlulupig, di ka pasisiil. Babalikan ko po yan. Sa manlulupig, di ka pasisiil. Saludo kami lahat sa inyong serbisyo at sakripisyo, at hindi namin kayong papabayaan lumaban na mag-isa. Kasama nyo kami sa pagtindig laban sa mga pilit na nanghihimasok sa ating bansa. At kasama nyo kami sa pagtindig para sa tunay na malayang Pilipino. Sa lahat po nagdedepensa sa atin sa West Philippine Sea, saludo po ako sa inyo. Snappy salute, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, mabuhay kayo at mabuhay ang ating Pilipinas, mahal na Pilipinas.
Thank you, our Senate President. I guess the whole Senate, we cross-party lines to support your resolution, Mr. Senator.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Nakakatindig balahibo, Mr. President, at tunay na nakakasama ng loob, Mr. President, ang mga videos at pictures na ipinakita ng ating ginoong Pangulo ng Senado. Mr. President, next to co-sponsor the measure, next to also, Mr. President, to deliver his support to the privileged speech of the distinguished Senate President is the gentleman from Cavite, Senator Francis Tolentino. I move that he be recognized, Mr. President.
Senator Francis Tolentino is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I fully support